To reopen the RD10 code change public hearing. Second on that? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, folks, I appreciate you all coming out. We are here to speak about the proposed code change for the RD10 zoning here in Unionvale. Short version is that we will be removing Conference Center, which is already existing in that code, and adding a wedding venue to it in its place. And we will open this up to public comment. I just need to ask you all to limit your comments to 3 minutes per, and you get one time to speak. And whoever would like to go, just raise your hand and up to the podium, name and address, please. So anyone would like to speak? Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Hardesty, and I live at 39 Liberty Way. Not only am I a concerned resident, I'm a professional wedding and event planner with over 16 years of experience specializing in Hudson Valley destination weddings. The average size of the wedding I plan is between 175 and 250 guests, and the average budget for a wedding that I plan is between $400,000 and $1 million. I'm confident when I say there is no one in this room who knows more about weddings and events than I do. In addition to planning and executing large-scale events, I also have a consulting business and have been retained by developers to assess potential venue sites and assist with their development plans. I am likely the only expert in this room on this topic, so please allow me to tell you why a wedding and event venue or any catering facility should not be allowed in the RD10 district. While there are many aspects of this proposed law that carry merit and service protections to local residents, there are two major errors that I feel need to be remediated immediately in one proposed addition. First and foremost, 50 acres is not a large enough lot size for an event venue of 6,000 square feet, as it does not provide realistic setbacks for the noise that this size venue can create. It's important to understand that the specific lot that has raised the needs for this zoning law change in the RD10 district is a very specific 80-acre lot on top of Brusgell Road, surrounded on all sides by the residential area zone. There is no way to contain the noise from the RD10 zoned lot from traveling into all the residential area zones that surround it without significantly larger lot size. The typical wedding noise decibel level within the reception space room is 100 to 150 decibels. For perspective, the noise ordinance in the town of Unionvale is 60 decibels. Even when inside the building, this noise travels, especially at the top of a hill, and will reverberate through the residential area. But event noise is not only from music, it's also from the semi-trucks that deliver food, the semi-trucks that deliver rental equipment, the guests who have consumed alcohol and are boisterously outside, the buses that are idling while waiting for their departure time, the 150 cars that are added to our roads coming and going. To note, the portion of Brusgell Road that accesses this proposed venue is not within the RD10 district and is within the residential area that has strict noise and traffic regulations. I work at all local venues, some names you may recognize from smallest to largest. Wildflower Farms, 140 acres. The Links at Unionvale, 200 acres. Troutbeck, 250 acres. Cedar Lakes Estate, 500 acres. Lion Rock Farm, 600 acres. Not a single one of these venues sits on less than 100 acres of land. Approving this law with a 50-acre minimum limit is not only unfair to the residents in this area, a wedding venue is not viable on this size lot. As an expert and professional in the hospitality business, I recommend that you update the proposed law change to a minimum lot size of 150 acres. The second major flaw with this new proposed law change is that the special permit use allows for outdoor terrace and patio use until 10 p.m. The noise ordinance in Unionville is intelligently 8 p.m. for a reason. Enforcing this week after week, month after month will be a burden on town resources. 200 guests congregating on an outdoor patio will be a burden and direct persistent noise and nuisance to residents all spring, summer, and fall, directly impacting our quality of life during the outdoor months. I recommend this part of the law change be amended to align with the 8 p.m. noise ordinance currently in place in the town of Unionvale. When I consult for developers, the first thing I look at is the venue's proximity to residential homes. It's a telltale sign of if a venue will be successful or if it will fail due to the nuisance it creates for those who live nearby. It is unconscionable to put a wedding and event venue, hotel, or catering facility in any part of the RD10 district that directly borders the residential area zone. An additional amendment I recommend to be made to the proposed law change. To be successful, the developer would need to purchase every home in a mile radius, with the average home price in our area being $700,000. This is not doable.
I'm gonna need you to wrap it up here.
Which brings me to my final point. Allowing this change to our town code to go into effect paves the way for the proposed venue on top of Roseville Road. The only reason I knew that any of these conversations were happening is because a friend of ours was interested in buying the vacant lot at the end of Roseville Road, at the end of Liberty Way rather, but called to tell me that they were no longer interested due to the rumors that an event venue was going to be built across the street. An event venue with all the noise and traffic and transient guests that it creates immediately decreases property values, and this has already been proven by the broker who let me know about the proposal to begin with. I thank you all for your time and hope that you will not approve any code change that allows for a venue on a lot size less than 150 acres, any lot that directly borders a residential area zone, and no outdoor use after 8 p.m. in accordance with the current noise ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? It's not really a question and answer. We can meet with you afterwards and answer any questions.
Pittman, Roseville Road. I would like to voice my opinion that I am not in favor of the change in the zoning. If you look at the stipulations for RD10, there's no restaurant to be allowed. I don't see how a wedding venue is a substitution for a conference center. There's no catering business or buffet hall allowed. There's no bar or tavern. I saw that there's no alcohol license to be obtained. But you know, a free bar, an open bar, you know, that's a bar. The I don't know, hotel rooms, 10 hotel rooms. Hotel motels are not permitted in RD10. I saw that an inn, I don't know if they're gonna try to, you know, say that that's what that is, but there's all these things that the RD10 zoning already does not permit. So allowing this catering business or wedding venue or whatever you want to call it goes against all these other rules or zoning laws that are already there. So I think it's bad precedent to set to start changing it. You know, what if somebody would like to take their private stable and turn into a rodeo or something, you know, like you start making these changes like, oh, that sort of sounds good. You know, think about what that's going to lead to. It's going against a number of things that are already not permitted in the RD10 district. So please take that into consideration.
Quick question, where do you live?
Roscoe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, Hans Hardesty, 39 Liberty Way. Thank you, Supervisor, Councilman. I'm currently a resident, obviously. I'm not a very good public speaker, and I'm not a wedding event planner. I was formerly on the Dutchess County Planning Board. I have been involved with over $1 billion of commercial real estate transactions. I specialize in real estate development up and down the East Coast. I would like to start out by pointing out that the current zoning in RD10 says that it is intended for rural residential use consistent with the existing development pattern of the town's most environmentally sensitive lands, including its principal scenic vistas, rural countryside, architectural lands, and groundwater. I built a home across the street from one of the lots that this would affect. I believe, as we just currently heard, there's a lot of reasons why that lot should not be considered in this zoning change. The concerns that were raised are well pointed out, and the proposed changes in this zone and the residents' concerns should be taken very, very seriously. The proposed changes at this stage of review would have considerable impacts on numerous parcels and their neighboring properties. So these concerns have now been brought to light and should be considered within a larger scope of a master plan. In addition to what's been pointed out, I'd also like to say that this will in fact be a burden on the police and fire departments. There is no doubt with a noise ordinance at 8 o'clock with 200 or so plus people entering a lot on Bruscal Road that the police and fire departments will not be burdened. In addition, this will reduce property values, as pointed out. The traffic safety is a major concern on Bruscal Road. It is 55 miles per hour. It is only one lane each direction. There are sight distance issues, and there is no stacking for all these people and people that work there at the same time entering the venue and leaving late at night after a wedding festivities. We already have a problem with loitering and trespassing on our neighborhood, which is across the street. It will also affect the quality of life due to the sound. And this is why the acreage should be much larger than currently proposed. Wedding venue with 600 acres gets complaints. We obviously need to take this into consideration, and it needs to be done property by property and within a larger scope. In all cases, here, I think we clearly need additional information about all these serious implications that would change how the zone is supposed to be consistent with the existing development pattern of the town's most environmentally sensitive lands. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your time. That's why I think a larger acreage should be proposed.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I have to say, I'm
Name and address.
Struzari. I live at 2536 Wingdale Mountain Road, Wacoig, New York, 12570. I am not an advocate for this proposal change at all. I think that there are a number of concerns. The light at 55 coming in from Bresgal Road, the school there, the amount of traffic that's there, our town's infrastructure, the fact that I feel Unionville should remain a rural community and not have some booming business there. So I hope that this is a proposal that you guys are able to see your way around not accepting and changing the zoning law. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Joe Fiscaldo. I am gentleman proposing to put the venue on the property. I haven't met many of you yet. But there's been a misconception on what this is actually going to be. And a lot of the numbers you've heard tonight have been fabricated to accommodate personal feelings. We made agreements when we submitted our original paperwork for the venue to hold 160 people, not 200. We've created a soundproof building, so no sound escapes the building, and we designed it accordingly. Is the concept of it affecting school buses? Weddings are on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. There's no school buses Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Fireworks, we wouldn't allow that. If the town allowed it, we wouldn't want that. There's too much of a liability. Have lit candles in an open building, we don't want that. If we could have this all in writing and an agreement with the town. We want a farm venue, a nice building that looks the same as the houses that are on Liberty Way. Board and batten, white board and batten with black windows and a metal roof. In fact, the building is probably about the same size as most of the houses on Liberty Way. It's going to be the least obtrusive thing you could put on an 80-acre lot in this town. I mean, what other things that could come in there could be a 20-house subdivision. It was zoned for town center. All these things could be a lot worse than this. This is a building sitting in a field a football length away from the road. No sound is traveling up the hill that far. We agreed with the town there'd be no outdoor speakers on the cocktail hours, so there's no music whatsoever. If I was to go a football field length away and talk, you're not hearing me from a football length away. If there was music, I do agree with you. You would hear the music, but we made agreement. We don't want to disturb the neighborhood. We want to put a nice business in there. And that's that's basically what we're looking at. Minimal effect on the town in the middle of a big farm. And 80 acres is more than substantial. There's wedding venues throughout the county that are sitting on 3 acres. You have the Villa Borghese, which is the most well-known one in Wappingers Falls. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And so,
Please don't do that.
you know, I didn't do it when you were speaking, so I'd appreciate it if you don't do it when I'm speaking. So that's pretty much, I'd like you to take into consideration all those points. We expected when we came in that there'd be kickback. There's some beautiful houses on Liberty. I'm not stupid, I'm a developer, I know. But we also made our plan so it has no impact on anybody. We wanted minimal, we're lavender farms. We wanted to plant lavender fields and have this continue to be a farm.
Just gonna have you wrap it up.
Okay, thank you for your time, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, we're not going back and forth like this, please. We're not gonna have a back and forth in here, please. You take that out in the hallway. Oh, okay. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we did not get our report from the Dutchess County Planning Board, and we're not able to vote on this tonight. We're gonna end up tabling the resolution until a future date, but we'll keep you all posted on when that happens. And if there's any changes to the resolution, we'll have to schedule another public hearing. So with that, I'd like to put this on hold, put the public hearing on hold until that time.
The public hearing until we're gonna pick a date.
I would like to wait on that at this point until we get the results in. So, yeah, we know a
Date
firm
on
date.
note.
Yeah,
All right, I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Carrie, and that will be the end of the public hearing here for tonight. And we'll pick up the business meeting at 7:30. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Unionville Town Board meeting of December 4th, 2024. We'll start out with a salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, we'll start out with a motion to approve the minutes of November 6th, please.
So,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. I'd like to start out by thanking Darren Sampson for volunteering to run our video equipment here during the meetings. That's a big help to us. He contacted me a few weeks ago and was here last meeting, but I overlooked mentioning his thing. So big thank you to Darren. Appreciate that. I've had some time to go over the budget that was passed at the last meeting in detail and made some interesting observations. Councilman Welch, can you tell our residents here the impact that's going to have on their tax bill?
Shouldn't have any impact because we did not increase tax revenue for property owners.
Councilman Derlin, you stated that you worked with Councilman Cardelami, know the impact,
Yes, I did.
and what's that impact?
As far as I know, it was 0.
No, it's actually going to cost them $1 more per parcel. And the way that was accomplished, all the theatrics that went on last meeting, the cost of living adjustments were cut from our employees, along with some services, and all that money was funneled into the library account, which 2/3 of our residents stated that they don't want to fund. I just thought that our residents should be aware of that. I'll turn it over to Councilman Walsh.
Nothing to report for the last week or two.
Councilman Cardelami?
I just have comments back. Like usual, just more lies by the supervisor told to everybody. Again, just like was in the budget that was presented to the state, that's exactly what it says in it. You crafted the document to make it look better for you than other what was done. A lot of stuff was taken out of the engineering fund, out of the legal fund. There was almost $70,000 taken out of those two funds to supply things. Cost of living increases, everybody got a raise. Every single person that is a full-time employee got a raise. So again, continue to spread lies like you always do. So it's about time you reviewed the budget and actually you went line by line, just like I did at the meeting, went line by line, which you never did on your budget whatsoever. Besides throw it in front of us and say, take it or leave it. So my comments about it.
Councilman Darrell,
I reiterate what Pat says, but nothing else to report.
Councilman Givney.
I'd like to report that worked with Supervisor Frazier on replacing the old fluorescent lights over at the equipment shelter. For the recycle center, we replaced them with newer LED fixtures that will use less electricity and put off a lot more light. Second thing I'd like to report on is I attended the cookie swap that was here at Town Hall just prior to the meeting. It was a great time. Got to sample a lot of the cookies that our residents made and brought. I would like to say it was a success, and it looks like it's going to be done again next year. I hope more people come. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to add to pay special attention to our recreation report tonight, because she'll be talking about an upcoming event that a lot of fun for our residents. Town clerk report.
Thank you. The 2025 recycling passes are almost officially on sale. I'm getting ready to roll them out. So if anyone wants to purchase them, they can do an advanced order. If you want to stop by Town Hall, you can purchase them online, or you can leave your application with Peter at the recycling center and he will give it to me and I will mail it to you. Other than that, business
Okay,
as usual. Thank you.
thank you. Justice Court report.
How are you? My name's Paul Panko. I'm one of the two town justices in the town of Unionville, elected by the residents of the town of Unionville. I've done this for 21 years. I am allowed to address the town board on issues concerning the court. And tonight I'm going to be addressing it on what was done on the budget on 11/20. As I said, I've been a justice for 21 years. I was originally appointed the first year and then I've been elected every single year after that. And I've signed up for another 4 years. I must be insane, but I've done it. I've been a town board member in the past before that. And I was also a planning board member before that. I've worked under 6 supervisors from Steve Frazier, Betsy Moss, Patty Tompkins, Lizette Hitzman, Judy Coombs, Peter Bonk. I've been here a long time. And I know that John Welsh replaced me on the town board. So you've been a town board member. You were before me. And then Started in after. '84, So, yeah. So but I was away from. you were away and then you came back after I left and you took my position. So what tonight is I'm doing is I'm addressing some issues. The way the town budget came across last month, there were some comments made by one of the councilmen, Councilman Carlemi, had a few statements that said that our court was a completely failing department every year and that it was always going to be a failing department, which by his words are wrong, because we're not bringing in money. We bring in money, but we're only limited by the money that tickets are written, and you want to be fair with everybody that comes in front of you. That's why I do the job. I do the job because I think I can to be fair to people. If you've got a driving record of 2 pages, I'm going to make sure that that speeding ticket holds. But if you have no clean license and you're 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit, I can be flexible. So I've always done that with everybody. But those statements saying that we're a failing department are wrong. The budget was passed and it was brought up kind of like I was surprised at the way it was done. Usually in the past, it's given to the residents of the town of Unionville. They've had 4 or 5 days to look over that. I know that's not a law that's 5 days, but generally an idea is where people can comment on it so that it could be brought up. Other members of the board have the opportunity to look at that budget and say, I don't agree with this and this is why I need this. Now, I know that when I was a town board member, Lizette was the budget committee chairman, or she took care of the budgets. And she would always ask each department what their budget requests were. And usually the department would send in a request and say why. Now, I know Steve Frazier not only came to my office and sat down with me and asked me why I submitted the budget I did, but he also gave me a call and we talked more about that budget because there are some issues that were in it that were concerning me. One of the issues that I want to say is that, as a department, we try to bring in money for the thing, but we're here for justice, okay? We don't all make a lot of money. We aren't on a major road like the Taconic or 84 where there's hundreds of tickets written every day and these courts are filled with just one person after another giving the courts money and the town's money. We have a small section of 82 and a small section of 55. Many of the inside roads in the town are not really patrolled well, so there's not many tickets written on those. So you've got to understand that we're not going to make the kind of money that Mr. Cardelemi expects. So we're not really a failing department. We do the justice, and that's what we're here for, justice. He said that maybe sometime in the future the courts can start to make money, but probably never. Okay. Probably never, because we're not going to be putting a major highway through Unionville. I think I moved to Unionville, and everybody who lives in this town lives in Unionville because we love the rural area. We love the way we live. We're not a big business area, and as a court, we don't have the infrastructure like Beekman has with commercial properties where they're going to have more criminal, trespassings. They may have criminal petty larcenies. We don't have those things. We're kind of lucky for that, but we do have domestics. And, Mr. Cardelemi didn't understand that, 2 days prior to that 11:20 meeting, I was here at 2:30 in the morning doing an arraignment on a domestic where someone was beaten up. Okay. And I've spent several hours on these arraignments, especially when there's orders of protection to be written. And there's over the years that I've been here, I've come many times during snowstorms at 2 or 3 in the morning to do the same thing. For some reason, people like to get in a fight on a snowstorm in their house and they're arrested and they call me out and I come out and do that. I didn't necessarily say that we needed a raise. I mean, I know that we as a court justices haven't gotten them in the past. And when Steve asked for the budget, in the past, Ray Drina, the former judge, used to do all the budgets, and then he would hand it to me and I would go over it and then we'd sign it and give it to the supervisor who would look it over. And then usually under Lizette and that, it was a 3% across the board for raises. And the issues came as, I lost my clerk and the other, when Ray quit, his wife was the other clerk. She left. So we hired one person and we changed the structure to have one clerk for both judges. And with that one clerk, we tried to establish at least one day a week where she would be in the court, in the town hall, to take fines, okay, and to do any paperwork. And it's usually the day after our court night, which would be on a Thursday. So she'll be here tomorrow from 9 until 3 for those hours. In the meantime, she answers the phone at home. She sends me emails, she'll take whatever messages that she gets so that I know that I have to make a call to the district attorney's office or to somebody else's, to determine scheduling and that. I will do that. She is paid, and one of the things Steve asked me is, I put in an increase for the clerk. And I know that Mr. Cardelemi cut that down quite a bit and he didn't need it. He said, I phoned around and looked. Well, I don't know how hard he looked because the town right next to us, Beekman, first of all, pays their clerk $60,000 a year. Okay, this was her approved budget in 2024, or approved payment. They had also approved $27,000 for a part-time clerk. We're paying $15,000. So she was offered a job. She'd been offered a job in LaGrange. She turned that down, but she was offered one in Beekman and she interviewed. And it's a part-time job. And she has decided to take that too. She's going to stay with us because we're pretty good. As a court, she has a young child, and I've always been flexible. If there's an issue with her child, she's got to go to the doctors. I don't have a problem with that. We never had a clerk in this court, during the day up at the town hall for years. So I try to do the right thing for her. So she is taking that, but she's going to stay with Unionville. But if it comes down to where she's just going to work one part-time job, I'm sure when she's getting paid $30 an hour, which is what they are being paid because it's union in the town of Beekman, as opposed to what we're paying. She's gonna take that, and then I get to train another clerk, which you're not gonna be around to do, sir. I do take offense to what you had said about the court. I don't think it's right. I know that the other towns, when they do their budgets, they have a lot of lines, okay? They have a line for everything. In Beekman, they have a line for their security. They have a line for their pay. They have a line for their postage. They have a line for, pretty much everything they are doing. They'll do it for, equipment. They'll do it for their dues, for their travel, their training. One of the lines that was, and this is explained, we used to have a bunch of lines. So when I went to do this budget this year, the past supervisor, Betsy Moss, did not ask for any input from the courts. So she did the budget and we took it the way it was. So when I went to do it this year, I pulled out an old budget that we had done with Ray, and I'd noticed that several lines had been just deleted, taken away, don't exist anymore. And I looked them over. I mean, we are, all three of us are required to do training. Both judges have to do training every year. In the past, we do that in New York City. We go down to the Association of Towns where we had the ability to ask questions about our training, what's going on, issues that we might have in our court. And for the last few years, now the clerks are required to do a similar training. And I know this year my clerk went to her training. It was held in Niagara Falls. The town board did graciously grant that money, but I don't think there was a line in that budget for last year for that to do it. So I don't know where Steve's coming up with the money to pay for that. But when you're doing this budget, you need to look at all the issues that the courts are dealing with. I really don't think that the way this town board has been working the last couple of years has been very good. You kind of are guys fighting, okay? And the budget is something that you all have to work on. And I'm surprised that you would just bring it up the last minute without any input from any department heads, from any input from the community, and just pass a budget, because there are issues that need to be addressed. And I'm here addressing tonight that I don't think it was done right, and I think you should all be aware of that. So the next time the budgets are being done, you start to take into account all these other little lines of things that have to come through. I suppose our stamps are all just put together in a lump sum. All of our supplies are put together in a lump sum for the town. So, I mean, if you're trying to break out a budget by department, I think those things need to be accounted for. And I don't think they are. So, like I said, in the future, when the town budgets are being done, I think it's very important that the town board get all of the input they can. And I can tell you, Mr. Cardinal, I mean, if you come and ask me why I thought those numbers were what they were at, I would have told you why. I don't want to lose my clerk. I don't want to train another clerk. And in terms of pay, you know, we are one of the lowest paid judges, one of the lowest paid judges in the county. You can look around. I know that Beekman's not much more than us, but believe it or not, Beekman has a lot more residents, but they don't have as many. They have about the same amount of vehicle traffic tickets as we do. Okay, so they aren't bringing in the revenue that way, but they also have a prison. So if there's something that happens at the prison, those judges get to arraign them. They have a lot more residents, so I presume they have a lot more domestic issues in their town. So they do, and they have crime, and crime brings in some money, but not always. So I think that you need to really, try to compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges, because all the courts are doing justice. That's all we're here for. And I think that the budget was not done properly. So you guys, any questions for me?
Yeah, I have something.
Yeah.
But more of a comment. So first of all, if you took it that way, I apologize. That's not the way it was meant to be, that it's a failing department because of anything you're doing. The failing department, the way I see it, because there is no ability to generate revenue. Like you said, we don't have a lot of roads. We don't have a lot of tickets. We don't have a lot of domestic. That's the avenue I was going. So I apologize if it came off that way to you. So I wanted to make sure I brought that up to you as well. So when I started to look at costs for court clerks and costs for things like that, I went north of us, the towns that are more comparable, instead of south of us, where there's towns like Beekman and Wappinger, East Fishkill, because those are not towns comparable to us. Towns comparable to us are more north, like Washington and Stanfordville. So that's where I went to look for my numbers to see what it was, just so you get an idea of where I
Well,
look.
just so you know, last year I was the appointed judge in the town of Washington for several months. Okay. And the town of Washington went with one judge. Big mistake. The people I talk to from the Office of Court Administration say, hey, I don't know why they're doing this. They're trying to save money. But in the meantime, I was at a meeting the other night and I'm listening to the judge in Pleasant Valley saying, yeah, I'm doing their arraignments when she's not around. Okay. And that's not an acceptable thing because we do the arraignments. And I'm sure that, you know, if you got somebody that's creeping around the neighborhood, sticking their heads in windows and watching little girls or something like that, you want them off the streets. Okay. You don't want them in your neighborhood. You want to do an arraignment. You want to put them in a jail cell so that they're not there. You expect that type of justice. I can't say what the state of New York has done with the bails and all that stuff because it's insane. I don't agree with it, but I can tell you right now that you want to see that your community is safe. And we have a pretty good community. That's why we live here still. I mean, I had the opportunity a few years ago to sell my house and move out. That's not what I wanted to do. I like where I live. I like the people I work with. I like the town board. I know everybody on this town board, and I think that you guys are all good people. But I was very surprised at the way that budget came out. And it's kind of, I think Steve was surprised. I don't know the way I saw the meeting from the television is that he didn't have an idea that any of that was coming through. If he had the opportunity to look at it and say, okay, I agree with this number, or let me tell you why this number shouldn't happen. I think that would have been a better way of working with it. I as a town board member too, would all sit down with a budget, and we'd look it over, go line by line, and figure out what it was. I don't think that happened here, and I don't expect it to happen again. I expect that the town board's going to try to work it out ahead of time so that they know that the community knows what they're going to get. You guys are going to know what you're going to get. I was kind of taken back by that. I think that it's done right.
And I also want to say, I agree with you on the more detailed breakdown of certain things in the budget. You know, when you run a business, just like you run a town, you want to look and know what your expenses are going to be, not just a lump sum, because you have to break that out. Postage, envelopes, you know, all the supplies you need. The court, there's no breakdown for supplies for court in your budget. Where,
No,
you know,
there is not. And I figure it's done through the whole town. And you know, when we go to do stamping, I know that we're the number one thing. So if somebody's just trying to get a stamp through, I don't know how many times they're pressing the court number and we're getting charged for a stamp or something like that. But that's not the point. I mean, the point is that you should have some kind of idea how much the courts are using for stamping, how much you know, planning department's using for stamping, so that each department is being broken down properly. You know, we use printer inks, that should be broken down. You know, we use paper and manila envelopes, pens, you know, staples. All those things are supplies. Those are broken down. And I think that other towns do that, not all of them, but because I went to a bunch of other towns and I did ask other judges what they're getting paid. And I know that we were number 2 years back, but I think we've gone down even farther. And like I said, I think Betsy was the one that actually removed some lines from those because I didn't see them. I'd seen them prior. And I think that it's really important because, you know, the training, we were expected to do the training. And if I want to go to New York City and go to the Association of Towns and do my training, I will do that. And in the past, you know, I've worked out different ways every time, whether it's spending overnight there because I don't want to travel the next day, or if it's, you know, going on down on the train and coming back and going down on the train, but it's all required to do. And it's not something that we're doing, you know, for just free. I mean, that train's $25 each way last time I was down there. So, you know, it's something that we need to work together at. It's all something that's important for me, that you guys understand how the courts work.
And the training, I agree. The training is not just a court problem too. Don't forget, you know, the town clerk, the town board, you know, planning board members, town board members, the constables, and there's a line for the constables for training, but there's not a line for any other department for training.
Right.
You know, so that's something that definitely
And
needs
that
to be
was
looked into.
this year.
Exactly. That's another thing that needs to be put in the budget. I mean, listen, town board members are supposed to go to training every year too. You know, that's something that should be put in the budget as well.
I agree.
But the biggest problem that we have here is revenue, right? You know,
Well, and then you said new streams. What new streams can you possibly think of that the court's going to have?
No,
we can charge people coming through our magnetometer.
You have no way to generate more revenue, especially with the way the state takes most of the money out of the fines anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. There's got to be, and that's something that the town board has to work on, and the town in general has to work on different revenue streams to be able to offset a lot of the expenses that are coming up. And it's not just in the courts, it's in every department. So, you know, that should be the goal, is updating revenue in this town so we don't have to continue to increase taxes on taxpayers. Hopefully we can leave it steady. leave taxes
Well,
the same, but increase revenues. We have
I
the
understand
park
it.
and we need to use that.
Understand it, but there are gonna be certain departments, like the highway department, they don't generate money. They
100%.
take money from the taxpayer, from the state and the county. They don't generate money, and
Same thing
and
as
the courts
parks.
do generate some, okay? But then there are months that we have good months where we generate, and there are months that we have little or nothing, okay? I can't control that, and with the state, the way the state says, hey, if you can't pay right now, you can wait, you can hold off. We can't suspend your driving privileges for not paying. People say, oh, hey, and that's what's happening. Now I'm getting files that are building up and we're spending, what is it, 69 cents per letter to send, hey, please pay us by this date. And then they don't do it. We send them another letter. That's the only option we have unless we start putting judgments on everybody. And I'm trying to hold off on that, but other towns are doing that. And I don't want to put judgment on a person for failure to pay a vehicle traffic ticket if I don't have to. So, but I mean, there's got to be something. You could be the board, pushing your congressman, your assemblyman. We can't be political. I can't sit here and comment on the new developments that you want to change, the zoning changes you want to make, or the library. That's not our position to be political here at this meeting. But in terms of the budget, I have to look out for the court. I have to look out for my clerk, my people. The other judge, Steve Diamond, he's a good judge, but he's relatively new at this thing, but he's he's doing the job just as much as I'm doing the job. So I expect that the town board is going to show respect to our department. And just so you're aware, I mean, we are a separate branch of government, okay? So I know that you're a legislative branch, Steve's the executive part of the branch, okay? So we don't really work for you. You guys are the landlords to our courtroom, okay? But we don't work for you. So I try to work, but I'll work with every one of you. You know that.
Yep.
But if you guys are going to do a budget like that again, I would appreciate that you come before this. This is the first time in 21 years that the court's ever had to come to the town meeting to address it. And I only addressed it because I saw that meeting and that was not happening. So, you guys have any other questions?
I'll say something quick, because I'm one of the ones that voted for that budget. First of all, I do commend you and Steve are amazing judges, amazing public servants. So thank you for your service to us. And I think that us voting on that budget, yes, was not something against you guys. I mean, no budget is perfect. The other budget that was presented was not perfect, was not well communicated. Our budget also was not well communicated. You're absolutely right. This board does not work well together right now. We're not a cohesive bunch, and there's two factions here, which is clear. And we just don't work well together, and we have been communicating well, and it's embarrassing. And what happened at the last meeting was acts of desperation, I guess. But we absolutely do need to work better together, and hopefully we can start doing that.
I think you guys can. I know you can. I know you can.
And I think we're I'm committed to doing that. I suggested that we do work sessions in previous meetings. I think we should really examine that after this.
I know there are rules concerning your meeting, a number of board members meeting at the same time. But
No, well, we had work sessions. We had one work session. We had one legislative session.
Okay.
This is the way we used to do it. And we used to get a lot done during those work sessions. We don't have that anymore. And the legislative sessions we're up here, we're voting. To me, it's like a bunch of grandstanding. We do those work sessions. We actually get down and get into the nitty gritty of what's going on in this town.
Yep.
And we can actually have real conversations with the people in the town. And that unfortunately doesn't happen right now.
I think that as you guys, work together on this there's a new group, there's a number of someone new coming in, and that you guys kind of have these sessions where you can work together, even during a meeting, saying, look, we're going to bring up this budget, and we're going to go this line, until, you've got everything settled out so that when it's time to vote on the budget, it's been presented to the community and it's presented to the department heads. And if there's a question, go ask the department head why they submitted the budget they did. I know that our constables, I mean, that used to be one of our things was security for the courts. That got taken out and just put in all the constables. And then, so the constables numbers, we don't have any control over that at all as it is. So, but you want to break this all out. And I think that you guys could do that. I'm hoping that you can do that because it's not good to watch the court fight. You guys are doing the best you can, but we're all here for one thing. We're here to serve the people in town of Unionville. And that's what they want. They want to have a good government that's fair and honest. and they want justice that's proper in their town. So, if there's anything I can do, I will help, but, I'm restricted as to what I can do with the town board. So I do appreciate you guys hearing me tonight. Is there anybody else have any other questions?
I appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, recreation report.
So as was mentioned earlier, I want to thank everyone who participated in our first annual community cookie swap. It was a lot of fun, really great turnout. Thank you to everyone who participated, who made goodies, cookies. We had a lot of fun swapping recipes and all those sweet treats. Congratulations to our winners of the evening. And again, like was stated, we look forward to hosting it again next year, hopefully bigger and better. This Saturday, December 7th, we will host the annual grand illumination scheduled from 4:30 to 6 p.m. This event is free for residents and $5 per family for non-residents. Family and friends can enjoy warm drinks, snacks, crafts, and a visit from Santa. We will also be able to have our annual roasting of the marshmallows, which is great. At 6 p.m., we will all be invited outside into the park to enjoy watching the holiday lights turn on and start off the winter season. Just as a warning to families, kids, Santa will be arriving at 4:45 at the park. Our fire department will be delivering him. So if you want to step outside to see that happen, it's really, really fun to watch. And then as another reminder, we will once again be accepting non-wrapped toy donations through the Hope Through Pope toy drive. Those toy donations will be enjoyed by the Children's Home of Poughkeepsie. The donation box is still up here in Town Hall. We'll move it down for the event. It'll be located right next to Santa. More information on this event can be found on our social media pages and our Parks and Rec website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Welsh, you'd like to read the Parks Department report? please?
Yes. Park report for 12/4/24. Parks Department has been focused on putting Christmas lights and preparing the grand illumination event that is taking place this coming Saturday at the park. Thankfully, we have gotten our trucks ready and we are able to deal with the storm that hit a few weeks ago and clear the areas that we are in charge of maintaining. Storm knocked out the transformer for the park building and Central Hudson had to come and replace it.
Okay, thank you. We have a year-end equestrian center report.
Good evening. I'm Loretta Ryan, the Equestrian Center Director. We had a fun year this year. In June, we had our annual draft horse pull, which has been a long-standing tradition here at the park, if any of you know Betty and Rich Albrecht. And this year, we had our biggest competitive field of horses we ever had since hosting the pull. We had 10 teams in the lightweight and 12 teams in the heavyweight. So this event is only possible through the generosity of our horse pull sponsors. I have the full list of the sponsors in our year-end brochure, if anybody would like one. It's also posted on Facebook as well. So next year we'll be having our 30th anniversary. It'll be held on Saturday, June 7th, so mark your calendars. If you've never been to this event, I strongly encourage you to bring the family and see some real horsepower. If anybody wants to be a sponsor, I can certainly get you a sponsorship form. So last month we held our year-end celebration at the Links. We had about 80 people from friends, family, neighbors, trainers, town officials, draft horse pulls, enthusiasts, horse show competitors, volunteers, again, all coming out to mark the end of another year of horsing around. So thank you to the local businesses and people that supported our silent auction as well. All those names and businesses are posted on our Facebook page. So we held 3 horse shows this year, April, June, and September. And it's great to see the interest that year over year has grown. We even needed the assistance of our town constables for parking at the September show. And then I wanted to read, I don't often get mail about the Equestrian Center, but I did after our first tour show. Dear Loretta Ryan, this was after the April show. What a wonderful experience for our horses and fun time we had attending your horse show at Time War Equestrian Center this past Sunday. It was perfect. A beautiful day, lots of children with ponies, spectators in lawn chairs, a PA system. Even the car alarm and shooting were beneficial aspects to our desensitization efforts. It was rewarding to see our horses settle down, unravel, and begin to accept a horse show venue. I won't read all the other stuff that's a little horse, lingo. But at the end, she even wrote, P.S. I love the ice cream truck rumbling uphill and the children lining up for dessert. So it is really a family event. So again, even if you don't have horses, it's fun to come. Next, I want to thank Olivia Martin, our horse show manager. She does from horse show programs, show courses, patterns, websites, and more. And then there's a few other people that have been a huge help supporting and volunteering at the show. Jamie Manning, I don't know if any of you know her, except Leah, maybe Kay, but she attends all of our Time War events and is always looking to support, whether donating gift bags, silent auction items, and she's even donated back her 50-50 winnings. So she's a gem, and she's always coming up with different ways to support Time War. Lisa Ritter, she's worked the gate at all the shows, helps with the patterns in the ring. She spends a lot of time helping with the year-end awards, and she also made a generous donation as well from Ritter's Ranch. Julia Del Vecchio, I'm lucky to have Julia. She's donated her time announcing at 2 of our horse shows, and after the year she's had, I appreciate her time. Kay Saglabeni, she's been going around at our horse shows and collecting 50-50 raffle. She's done a fantastic job convincing people to buy tickets. She doesn't pressure you to donate the winnings back, though. I do want to say that. And she also spent a lot of time going around collecting raffle items for our year end. And then my cousin Linda Cook, she was disappointed that she wasn't getting award for her horse show debut at our April show. So she decided she wanted to award a young and up and coming horse show rider with $500. So congratulations to Caitlin Bolander, our lucky horse show competitor, who also qualified for a year-end award and attended our year-end celebration. There's more people mentioned in our program that have helped out and supported our events. So please know how appreciative I am for all of you. I will always take volunteers, no experience necessary. So let me know. We have 3 dates planned for our horse shows: Sunday, April 27th, Sunday, June 22nd, and Sunday, September 28th. We'll have those dates posted on our Facebook and website. And then another reason to come to the Equestrian Center events is the Unionville Fire Department will now be selling food and drinks at all of our events going forward. So we're excited about that. It's great to have the town coming together and supporting each other. And then one last update is a few years ago, Sweet Pete had made a generous donation to Time War Equestrian Center. So at the time I had the town put the money in a separate account that I could use later on. Well, this year with my Facebook scrolling, I found some used jumps. And so I was able to get those. So thanks to the support of Sweet Pete. And we'll be able to use these nice wooden jumps for years to come. We've had PVC ones up there, which are not as nice. So these are really nice to have. And we plan to have a ring painting party in the spring. Again, no experience necessary. Get your paintbrush and dirty clothes and come out. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Equestrian Center events. Any questions?
I think that you forgot to thank yourself.
Oh.
None of this would really happen without you running it all. So I think everybody needs to recognize that as well.
Thank you. I enjoy it. I really do. And I'd say the friendships you make and the people you meet has been worth it. And just seeing everybody come together and the smiles on the kids and the people's faces is really nice. So thank you. Any other questions? Anybody want to year end?
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay, library report.
Good evening. My name is Randy Braun. I'm the attorney for the Unionville Library trustees. The trustees have asked me to
speak to you tonight about two issues, which I think are important. So I'd like to first address the issue of Proposition 2, which came about back in November 5th. Proposition says that specifically, shall the town of Unionville own and operate a public library? Doesn't say shall the town of Unionville abolish a public library. In fact, Education Law 268, which is the governing statute here, is specifically titled abolition and talks in terms of abolishing the library. So I think what happened is when you had the town vote, it was essentially an advisory question and an advisory opinion. What we think should have happened was the proposition should have said, shall the town of Unionville own and operate a public library? And if not, should it abolish the existing library? Doesn't say that. Making implications into the statute or into the proposition would really be an unconstitutional deprivation of due process. The trustees understand that to the extent that you may put another proposition on the ballot at the next election that specifically talks in terms of abolishing the library, and should the voters agree with that, then fine. But it's a little premature at this juncture to do that. And while the trustees are willing to work with the board, I have to say that if there is an effort to abolish the library, let's say in January, that's going to force the trustees' hand to seek judicial intervention to confirm that the proposition, in fact, does not abolish the existing library. The trustees have, as you know, taken the oath of office required by the New York State Constitution, and they're fiduciaries. And as fiduciaries, they have to take all appropriate steps to protect the interests of the library. Abolishing the library on these facts is not something that the trustees believe is appropriate. And so we were hopeful that we can work with the board moving forward to resolve this particular issue. Now, there's also the issue of Education Law Section 259, which deals with the turnover of library funds. So there are three particular periods of time that we have to talk about: 2023, 24, and 25. As to 2024, I think the trustees have made a request in writing to the board to have the funds, the library funds that have been collected for library purposes, turned over to the library treasurer. I think there's no question that the library was chartered in 2024 and that those funds need to come over upon the demand which was made in writing. As to 2023, there poses a little different issue. The library wasn't chartered in 2023, yet taxes and monies were collected for library purposes. Under the statute, and there's an exception here, the statute says that monies received from taxes and other sources for support of a public library shall be paid over to library treasurer upon written demand of the trustees. So even though the library wasn't chartered in 23, money was still collected for library purposes. So to the extent that any of those monies were collected for library purposes, those need to be turned over. With respect to 2025, nothing has come up yet, but to the extent that any monies are collected in 25, once again, those monies will have to be turned over upon demand. And that's also monies not only collected, but in 23, we're also talking about monies that were encumbered for the specific library purpose. So once again, the trustees are willing to work with the board and love to work with the board to try to resolve these issues. But in the event that that can't be effectuated, then what we're going to have to do, what the trustees are going to have to do, is they're going to have to take appropriate legal action in order to advance that. And that's only going to cost taxpayer funding to do that. And we think that that would be really a travesty, because we
Absolutely.
Yes, right.
100%.
Yes, because we would like to work with the board instead of having to oppose the board. All here trying to work for the best interests of the town. And by having acrimony back and forth about what's going on is problematic. The issue again is that going back to proposition number 2, the plain language of proposition does not abolish the library at all. So what we're saying is, again, if at the next election cycle, a proposition wants to be put up to quote unquote abolish the library, and if the residents vote for that proposition, then the trustees have to abide by that. But at this juncture, it's premature and it's not ripe to do anything in abolishing the library. So that's what I wanted to speak to you about tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions any of you may have. I know this has been a contentious issue, or these have been contentious issues for quite some time. And rather than be contentious, we would like to try to ameliorate the issues and maybe move forward together instead of questions.
I think at the last meeting, we asked, Pastor, if they could give us some opinion in regards to the encumbering of funds. I don't know, I don't want to speak for you.
I can address that if you'd like. So prior to the last meeting, the president of the Board of Trustees of the library had submitted a letter to the town. The letter included a written request for payment to the trustee, to the treasurer of the Board of Trustees, of funds that had been raised by taxes for library purposes, in support of the library. So at the last meeting, I said, well, I'm going to have to research that. And I said I'd have an answer for you by tonight's meeting. I did submit an email Tuesday to the town board members where I summarized my advice. Town law, New York State Education Law, Section 259 is the relevant section. I copied that for the town board members. And I did distinguish between 3 years. I said for 2024, there's a budget where funds are encumbered for support of a public library. And I'm reading in part, it says, quote, and this is just the relevant portion, quote, money received from taxes for the support of a public library shall be paid over to the treasurer of such library upon the written demand of its trustees, end quote. So I think for 2024, the fund should be turned over to the library treasurer. For 2023, I didn't think it was clear. We have to go back and look at what is in the budget from then. Since the library had not yet been chartered, there's a reference here to having funds expended on properly authenticated vouchers. I don't know whether any of that happened in 2023. I don't know whether a separate fund was ever created in 2023. I don't know if at the end of the year, money stayed in the library fund or it got paid into the town general fund balance. So an audit needs to be done in a way, just internally with the bookkeeper. For 2025, we're not there yet. There are no funds. So that was my advice in my email. I did say, however, as an ending matter, that there's been a proposition in the town. Practically speaking, right now, there are 3 votes on the town board that have been supportive of the library. Say the library, I mean the municipal public library. I think come January, that's going to change. There will be 3 votes in the other direction. I think that the intent of the proposition was to address the issue of abolishment. Clearly, the word abolish is not used, but the intent is there. Shall the town operate a public library? The answer is no by vote. I do think come January that 3 of the town board members is abolition. That's speculation on my part. That's just big. Steve, I don't know if you want to address anything.
Yeah, I managed to reach the Board of Education yesterday, Frank Reese, the man who signed the provisional charter for the library. And he told me that his attorneys have looked at the proposition and they accept it as binding. and are in the process of determining what the next steps are. As far as they're concerned, that was a valid proposition and they are proceeding in that direction.
Well, no one
So,
is,
let me just interrupt. I sent this email to you on Tuesday night, had a phone call
Right.
conversation with the supervisor. And he mentioned how he had had a phone conversation with someone from the Board of Regents, I think he said, who said that from the state's point of view, they viewed the proposition as binding. This was something that was, I'm going to say, new to them in the sense that it's not very often that a town votes to abolish the library. So they needed to research the mechanisms that should follow. So I would recommend the town try to get something in writing from the state, from the Department of Education, the Board of Regents, whoever the appropriate agency is, about that issue. If they've already decided, that was a valid proposition, it's binding, if we're proceeding in that manner, we need to know that. Certainly, I think come January, they're going to be 3 votes in the town for the direction.
so let me address council for a moment.
Let me just ask, is that okay with the town?
I'm not wanting to have a court session here.
Well, I'm not looking to have a court
Okay.
session. I'm just trying to,
So
have a discussion. But since council brought that up, I just wanted to raise the issue. No one's saying that the proposition is not valid on its face for what it says. What we're saying is that it's not valid for purposes of abolition. So the idea is that the only way, absent another proposition at the next election cycle, which uses specifically the terms abolition, what will happen is the matter will be brought through a declaratory judgment action to a judge, to a court, to make a determination as to whether that proposition constitutes an abolishment of the library or it doesn't. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, look, we could go through an entire bunch of money and time and effort in litigating this, or we could say, look, at this juncture, based on its face, this proposition does not specifically say abolition. And while it may be a valid proposition for what it says, it's not valid for that. Again, I reiterate, if we go to a next election cycle and we use a different phraseology in a proposition where there's no question about it, then the library trustees believe that the voters then have had their due process, because then they know they are voting to abolish a library. There's no implication involved. There's no vagaries. There's no ambiguities involved. So at this juncture, that would be the position of the library trustees. Now, as far as Education Law 259, excuse me, while it's true that money has to be, a separate library fund by the Treasury of the municipality has to be maintained, there's an exception, and it says the money has to be expended only under direction of the library trustees on properly authenticated vouchers, except, that's the operative word, except that money received from taxes and other public sources for the support of the public library shall be paid over to the treasurer of such library or cooperative library system upon the written demand of its trustees. What does that mean? To us, it means that notwithstanding the fact whether the municipality created a separate account or didn't, whatever money has been collected needs to be transferred over for library purposes, not only for 24, but for 23 as well. As long as it was collected for library purposes, notwithstanding the lack of a charter. So again, we may have differences of opinion. I'm hoping that between now and January, we can have some kind of colloquy to try to resolve this to the benefit of everyone, other than to have this kind of acrimony going on and having to go into the litigation mode, which I really don't think helps anybody. But if it's necessary, the trustees as fiduciaries will have no choice but to do so. So I thank you for your attention this evening. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, again, thank you for allowing me to speak to you, and I appreciate your attention.
You just say to the town board, I do think you should seek a letter from the state as quickly as you
Right.
can to see how the state views the proposition. The section 268 of the education law is entitled abolition.
that the proposition didn't use that word. The question is, what was the intent of that proposition? If the state has already taken the position that they find the intent to be abolished, and if they find that to be final, that's good to know. If they haven't, it's good to know as well. So we need to get that in writing. I think once we have that in writing, I think a colloquy, a meeting is a good idea. But I think practically speaking, come January, the 3-2 vote on the town board is going to change.
Or either of you talked to the state about this?
I wasn't sure if I could come up, but, or I had to wait to public comment, but yes, so on November 14th, I specifically spoke to Frank Reese about this because of the vote on November 5th, to which he, was gracious in reaching out to me to hear more about it, explained our intent of requesting the funds to move over, and it's with the funds that we felt that we would be fine, to sustain ourselves at least through the next election cycle, to which he felt his words were relieved in our willingness to continue supporting this library, and even offered us legal support if needed. So it was a completely different presentation than what Supervisor Frazier just presented to everyone. He was in support of the library and offered us legal counsel. So he did not state anything about the proposition. I read the proposition to him. He agreed with me. It was a survey question. He did not say anything about abolition of the library. So it's shocking to hear. So I can also reach out to him because, as Pat said at the last meeting, he had reached out to the town board, myself, Mid-Hudson Library System, to schedule a time. So I haven't seen anyone else reply to that. So I think it was just waiting.
Well, he also said to me that it put that meeting on hold until his attorneys determine what the next step should be.
He
Well,
did
why
not
wasn't
say
that in
that
any
to me.
emails then?
Yeah,
They
he emailed
specifically
everybody else.
emailed all
Apparently,
of
they're not
us.
prepared to put it in print yet.
They specifically emailed all of us to have a meeting,
They did.
and then you
And
went
Rebecca
and
responded.
called them
Yeah, I did call them
instead of.
because all I'm getting from them is what's being repeated here. I wanted to hear it direct from the source.
Well, we all.
And
could have
then
heard
you're all
directly from the
implying that
source.
I'm spending the half of the night up here lying to you, and that's absolutely false.
Well,
Everything I've said, I can back up 100%.
well, then
in
why
writing.
didn't you set up the meeting so all of us could hear what the state had
Because
to say?
he's not prepared to have that meeting.
Then why'd they send the
He
email?
did- He did ask us to have a meeting.
He did ask us, and he has reneged on that, stating that until his attorneys have come up with a solution to this, they are not prepared to have this meeting.
But then how come that's not in an email?
He didn't say that. in
Apparently, he
anything.
wasn't prepared to put it in an email.
To cancel a meeting that he
He-
that he
He
attended?
didn't cancel it. It hasn't been scheduled yet.
Because you never
She didn't
answered.
send
It wasn't just me. There
I
was
know
no
it wasn't
dates.
just you.
There
There
was
was
no
multiple
dates
people that didn't
proposed to
answer.
this thing.
There were 2 dates proposed.
And I asked him specifically about the
Wait
meeting.
a second, I'd like to interrupt.
Yes.
I think that instead of discussing this, we need to request a letter from the state.
Right.
get it In writing as to what their
That'll give us
position
a clear
is.
picture.
And their position may be our attorneys are looking at it, we need some more time, so be it, but we should get something in writing. And after that, a meeting would be a good idea. So that's my suggestion, get that in writing. There's not much
Thank you.
point in discussing it any further until we have
Yeah.
something in writing.
And I'll go into that tomorrow. Okay, we're at public comment on agenda items, please. Yes. Oh. Name and address, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Paula Yellowbrook. I live at 36 Burbank Club Road in the village of Burbank. And Mr. Frazier and I believe Mr. Harrington, I don't think he's here, were elected. I am under being led to understand because they would like Northville to be what it used to be. A little village in Dutchess County that's agrarian and rural, where things just stand still and time doesn't grow and we're all just real neighborly. And I cannot imagine that in 1958, which is how you kind of, I was led to believe, wanted everyone to feel we were being brought back to, there would not have been a library and a place for children to read. I am appalled that rather than embrace a library, you have what appears to be stood in the way of it. I am appalled that rather than be a hero to the community, you've allowed petty politics and resentments to stand in the way. I am appalled that anyone who lives here who has been misled hasn't asked for the truth. Mr. Cardellini at the last meeting was able to present to us that a library did not raise taxes by $1. And yet everyone in town was led to believe that they would all go bankrupt. Mr. Frazier and this board, you represent the best of this community. You're here for the best for us all. To stand in the way of a local library and allow town of Beekman to take our money is preposterous. Rather than be a hero and progressive, you allowed a cell tower to just go away, which could have brought much needed funds to this town. But you chose not to respond to text messaging and chose not to respond to emails, and you sat on it. That's not what a supervisor does. He supervises and makes things better for everyone. I've been here for 2.5 years. I'm shocked. Really. I was a commissioner under Mayor Giuliani for 5 years in New York City. I saw some really wicked stuff. What I did see when Mr. Giuliani was the mayor was that he cared enough to try to find solutions to simple problems. A cell tower bringing money,
Need you to wrap it up, please.
a cell tower bringing money to this community is a good thing. At 3 in the morning when a child is cut and can't be reached by,
Wrap it up, please.
I'm going to finish. The child is bleeding and we can't get an ambulance because no one can get a cell phone service. That's bad. And when a child doesn't have a library, that's also bad. And by the way, I would like to see where that's written. I would like to see where that's
I
written.
need you to sit down,
Thank you,
please.
but I would like you to show me where that's written, that my time is up. Thank
Ma'am,
you.
you're out of order. Anyone else? Yes.
And we've usually gotten along really, really well until about the past 3 years or so. At the last meeting, it appeared that some of our board members do not have a clear understanding of the difference between a survey and an actual vote regarding the library and when those activities took place. Here is some history to try to clear up their confusion. In April of 2017, Betsy Moss, chairperson of the Library Steering Committee, discussed the results of a survey of our town residents and their attitudes about library services. She said that there was a good return rate of 188 questionnaires. The survey showed that a majority of the residents said a library is important to them and their family. However, 28 people said we do not need a library at all, and only 2 people said we need to have a library in our town. That's the only survey we have had about having a library in Unionville. Even though the survey showed library services were important to our residents, the town board still would not approve using services from the Mid-Hudson Library, so a group of residents decided to support a vote called a 414. The ballot, it was Proposition 7, which authorized the town to join the Mid-Hudson Library Service so residents could have unrestricted use of our neighboring libraries. A vote on Proposition 7 was held in November 2021, but the vote failed by 139 votes because the early voting was already done. Voters were confused about the way it was written, and many were influenced by some inaccurate information about the proposition that was mailed out at the last minute by Supervisor Moss. Then a year ago, when the town new library lease was approved by the town board in 2023, town voters made another attempt to keep Betsy from implementing her plans for a library. Signatures were obtained to have a permissive referendum vote by residents on whether or not the town should fund the lease. Enough signatures were obtained to have a vote. However, a friend of Betsy's offered to pay the lease for the next 99 years which in itself voided the reason to have a permissive referendum. Even though at the start of this whole process, Betsy had said that it would, if the voters wanted to have a vote about the library, then that's what we would do. Whenever residents have tried to have a vote on the library, Betsy Moss has interfered and tried to stop it or has distributed inaccurate information about it. The most recent time is the vote this past November on Proposition 2, which clearly asked, shall the town of Unionville own and operate a public library? Now she and her minions are trying to have the results cleared non-binding, even though the proposition's wording was approved by the town attorney, was certified by our town clerk, and was defeated by a majority of voters by a margin of 2-1.
Gotta have you wrap it up, please.
Education law indicates that either town residents or a town board can vote on whether or not a town should have a library. My question here is, when will the town board members stop this charade for a town library and do what the majority of the town residents want, as demonstrated by this most recent?
Okay, I gotta call it. Thank you. Hey, anyone else? Okay, new business. I didn't have anything here for new business. The RD10 code change, I think we would need to table till further notice.
Okay,
Have a motion to do so.
so move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we spoke earlier in the season here about rates at the recycle center. Pete Poltrak came up with some numbers here that he feels will keep them in the black for the upcoming year. Some of these are price raises, some of are new prices that are implemented. And you've had these for a while, wanted to get input on that, where you feel with that, and possibly put them into effect first of the year.
So I reviewed a lot of these prices. The prices look good. Just one of the main things I just want to bring up, and I'm not sure if all you board members are aware on, how we get rid of most of this stuff. So we pay to Royal Carting to remove it in roll-off containers. So there's a fee for them to remove the container, and then it's a per ton price. So one of the easiest ways to figure out if these prices are valid or if they're good enough to stay in the black is to kind of get an idea of what these things weigh. And then we could calculate that based on what our tonnage price is at Royal. So doing some quick math before the meeting, taking averages of what this stuff weighs, this will definitely keep the recycling center in the black on these items.
Good. Any other comments or questions on it? No.
I'm glad you got good input from Pete.
Yeah.
And my
We
opinion.
really
it looks
appreciate
good.
what he does there.
Yeah, he's certainly got his finger on it. I think it looks like a very good assessment of costs, prices for us.
Jeff, do we need this in the form of a resolution, or we just make a motion that we put these into effect first of the year?
If it's gonna be the first of the year, I do a resolution for the next meeting, right? So.
All right, you guys want to do that then?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, that brings us down to public comment on town issues. Anyone?
Take 3 minutes. Our town provides services.
Wait, name and number for house, please.
I'm sorry.
Name and address, please.
Oh, Chuck Richwine, 22 on the Green, Burbank, New York. Our town provides services for our residents that are not utilized by everyone. Godfrey Park, Time War, Equestrian Center, Town Pool, Summer Camp, all right, Senior Citizen Center, and now the library. I'm certain I'm missing a few. I find it interesting that the same concerns are not being raised about these other services. If the Senior Citizen Center folks don't like the library, would they be acceptable for the younger members of the town to have that center closed? What about Godfrey Park, the forgotten park? Maybe we should just sell it off. What about the pool and summer camp? Do we really need those services? There are some residents in this town that were violently against summer camp, but now that it's generating a profit, they are decidedly quiet. It is the town board's job to oversee and manage these costs and not politicize them. They should not be pitting one group against another. It seems that even our federal policies have made it into union. Instead of politicizing the library, the town should focus on getting the cell tower in place to get that $30K per year for Unionville. The town board should also be looking at a better management to reduce the $800,000 a year in ambulance costs. Our town senior leadership instead was focused on granting 20% to 35% pay raises for himself and others. Luckily for us, other members of the town board voted differently. Thank you.
Thanks for your support. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I would say the town board does not ignore Godfrey Park. Last year, we put a substantial, new playground in there and, upgraded some other things. So I think it's not ignored.
Okay, motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next meeting will be here December 18th, 7:30 PM. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
It's pretty cool.